All right, guys. So today we're going to be discussing basically the leveling process of MMOs. Essentially, the dichotomy between MMO endgame and not endgame. Some games like to focus extremely hard on the end game and basically kind of shuffle people up to the end game quickly so they can actually get into the content. Older games and a lot of different games will actually give more attention to the leveling process, the way that quests are done. These are big things in the way that people experience a game right at the beginning. So that dichotomy is important, but also like the new player experience, I think falls into this. If people are really enticed right away, or if they're really intimidated right away, I'm coming up with all sorts of examples in my head already that sort of, resonate with both of those things. So we're going to be talking about that. But while we were prepping for coffee break, we actually got into a couple of discussions leading into this that we thought I actually had to stop us. I was like, dude, this is good coffee break content. We should be discussing this on stream. So we had to actually be quiet and hold off. Two things. One, I got the Aerox 9 gaming mouse, which I'm very excited about. I'm sure a lot of people have already asked me actually about my thoughts on that, and I will be giving a very in-depth review about that mouse and MMO mice peripherals in general. But also, it's time for your weekly edition of Merrick and Cryptic Battle About Condi Mechanist.
Weekly.
It's at least weekly, dude. We do it more than weekly, but we share it weekly. Okay, are we good to turn on the cams? Everybody feeling good?
Yeah, also, I'd like to let everyone know I have a muffin and it's like the size of my face.
The size of your face?
It's a big muffin.
Oh wait, hold on. I got to turn the screen on for that. You can't have people miss out on the muffin.
Or Junie has a really small face. We'll figure that out.
No, I have a pretty big head, actually. I mean, not as big as Merrick's, but
Whoa! Just called out for having a fat head. I think that's what just happened there.
It's a good muffin, though. It's a really
what's up,
good
guys?
Muffin. That's like a big, solid muffin top.
Dude, I haven't even seen that. It is a giant ass muffin. That's a huge muffin.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, guys, welcome to Coffee Break. Actually, let's turn off the music so I can do this. I always get in trouble with Junie. I get in trouble with Twitch, and I get in trouble with copyright striking shenanigans every week because I keep the music on. Bam.
Can't you do a separate out channel with Beacon to have
You know what I can do?
Out?
I can make it so I can hear the music and you guys can't. And that makes me happy.
That works.
All right, guys, welcome to Coffee Break, our MMO gaming podcast. My name is Merrick TV. Love to see you guys. I'm so glad that we're doing this again. We had to take a little bit of a break. Junie and I went and visited California. I saw my family. We went to a memorial for my grandmother. It was this big thing, but we had to take some time off. Cryptic's been very busy. I think he's been remodeling his bathroom, building a new kitchen from scratch. I don't know what he's doing. He's doing all sorts of home improvement.
Home renovation. I like
Home renovation. But we are back, and what's up to our YouTube viewers out there? We got a couple of people out there that watch this on YouTube. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. If you enjoy this content, make sure, and I've been just dying to be able to say this, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, ring the bell, tell your friends, comment down below, let us know how you guys feel about the content or whatever things we're talking about, and make sure to let Cryptic know that he is wrong and that I am right. About Condi Mechanist and just all things in general. I think we can accept that that's probably true. So Cryptic, you were telling me that Condi Mech is super broken. Go.
Yes, Condi Mech is super broken.
What?
We're
Veto. Mute this man.
We're gonna let Condi Mech be broken for a little bit more though. We should talk about these mice, man. We should talk about how awesome these mice are, right?
Oh, dude. Okay, so Cryptic's got the same mouse, you guys. I do want to show it off. This is the Aerox 9 MMO mouse by Steel Series. For those of you guys who have not heard my rant before, welcome to the stream, because I imagine it's your first time, because I talk about this all the time. I think peripherals are very important. Keybinds are very important. Mice, and especially an MMO mouse, is very important. If you want to know how Merrick does so much DPS, it's because he's terribly handsome. But additionally, mice and peripherals and good keybinds are very, very important. Right? No pants. Pants are a DPS loss. I have evolved beyond the need of pants. I'm not even wearing them right now. Junie can confirm. But listen, guys, getting the right MMO mouse, the right peripherals are very important. We are not sponsored by anything, and I just happened to pick this mouse up thanks to our good friends 6MB and Cezanne. You guys are legends if you end up seeing this. I am such a proponent of MMO mice, but this one is sort of the new kid on the block. It's very exciting. It's the most lightweight MMO mouse that is out there. It has really solid software that I've been pretty happy with so far. The RGB is nice. It is super light. It's got like 160, 180 hours of charge time on the thing.
Yeah,
I get
about 2 days of gaming with it. I mean, I don't know. Everybody games a different amount every day, but I game in the evenings for 4 or 5 hours, and
I game a lot.
It easily
all the time.
It easily lasts those 2 days, and I don't have to charge it. So
yeah, it's a solid entry, guys. I know some people were talking about how the little holes in this bother them. I think it was 6MB himself actually said it was too holy. That's what he said. For me, it was a little strange on the aesthetic, right? It looks very different, but what I really like is that it allows for this sort of inside top-down RGB that happens here, which is really cool. It is exactly what is responsible for making the mouse as light as it is, which I have come to realize is something that I've always wanted and didn't even know that I wanted, was a very light MMO mouse. So I'm a huge fan of that. And the newest thing that I've sort of realized is, since it's getting to be a little hotter and our office, which is filled with electronics, is heating up, my palm has actually appreciated the ventilation.
Yes, we were talking about this a bit before, and that was something that really surprised me, was that the holes really do help with the ventilation. I mean, I don't really get sweaty palms that often, but when you're gaming, like, I don't know, you're doing a high APM rotation, like it can be intense sometimes, and it's nice having the extra ventilation there, and the mouse
high
being
APM
light.
rotation like a Condi Mechanist.
Yeah, okay. You can believe whatever you want. Whatever helps you sleep at night. No, so I mean, there's a lot. Like, I bought this mouse. For anybody who doesn't know, it's wireless. I bought I wanted a wireless MMO mouse. There's only one other one out there, as far as I'm aware, the Razer Naga Trinity.
Yeah, well, it's the Epic Edition or whatever it is. It's one of them is wireless.
Yeah,
and horrendously expensive, just like this one.
Yeah, it's expensive, and it's also an odd shape. Like, it's an odd shape, and not like I felt like I was not going to enjoy pressing those buttons very much. So I never bought that one. But when this one came out, I was like, a wireless MMO mouse. Like, I thought, okay, it's going to be too light. I'm not going to like that. The buttons are too spread out. I'm not going to like that. There was all these things I said I wasn't going to like about it. But it's wireless, so I have to get it and try it. And I got it, and not only do I love the fact that it's wireless, obviously, I would never go back to any wired mouse. But all those things I thought I wasn't going to like about it, I ended up loving it. Like, I love that it's lightweight. I love the aeration with the holes. The buttons being spread out are not a big deal, because if you have small hands, it might be a big deal. I have probably slightly above average hand size, but it's not a big deal for me. Like, with the Corsair Scimitar, you can slide all the buttons forward, which gives you that
best
extra
feature. Yep, absolutely.
It's the best feature. So I'm used to having all the buttons all the way up, and the pad on the Corsair is very small as well. So all the buttons are condensed. The nice thing about this, though, is that even though the buttons are spread out more and you can't slide them forward, all the buttons feel different enough, right? Like, I'm able to find what I want. They're not textured differently, but just moving my hands over them, I'm able to tell where I am. I feel like
they're not textured differently, but they're tilted differently.
Yes.
There's some sort of the casting is different on each button, so somehow intuitively your finger does feel that.
Exactly. I'm able to just tell where I am, at least the same as well as the Corsair, if not better. So there's just so many things, and like you said, the software, we've railed on and on and on in private and in stream. Yeah, IQ is terrible. It looks nicer, it is flashier than the SteelSeries software, but it doesn't matter how flashy it is. The functionality is
king,
the same or worse.
The only thing that matters. Yeah.
The functionality is the only thing that matters, but the functionality is the same or worse. I think worse than SteelSeries, and of course, it crashes constantly. So if it doesn't work, then I don't care.
Doesn't matter how pretty it is, right? Yeah, who cares? It should be super intuitive to bind keys, and it's not even intuitive to bind keys on IQ. Like, it is a huge pain in the butt to set that up. You have to make individual little. I don't know. It's weird. Like, it was very easy to set it up with with this software. The lighting is interesting. And the way that the lighting works is kind of cool. Like it's these little LED lights that actually shine down on a thin piece of plastic at the bottom. That's what casts the light outward. What I thought was kind of cool to save battery is when you put your palm on top of this mouse, it has a sensor, turns the light off.
That's so awesome,
you can't see it anyway, right? So it actually saves battery power. The moment that you lift your hand off of the mouse, it lights up again in this cool way. It's the little things, dude. I just think that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
And since we're probably going to wrap this up in a second, but what I want to let everyone know is that part of me getting this is I give a lot of speeches, not just about the fact that you should have an MMO mouse, but which one is sort of for which kind of person. I really don't think it's a catch-all. I don't think that there's just one mouse to rule them all. I think that it really kind of depends on your preference, your hand size, your grip. There are several different grips that people use for mice. And now that I have this one, I'm actually going to be putting out soon a YouTube video where I review all of the popular brands of MMO mice and try to describe to you which one I think you should get based on, hand size, budget, and grip. I will be doing that pretty soon. Look for that on our YouTube channel.
So, I mean, let's dive into that real quick, though. What recommendations would you have? Just a real short version of it for people like if you have small hands. I think your only option is the Corsair Scimitar. I just don't think there's another MMO mouse option out there for you. The Logitech one, there's like 4 main MMO mouse right now. I mean, there are other ones, but the 4 main ones are the Logitech, which is the cheapest. It goes on sale for like $15-20 sometimes.
Yes, that is the number one thing about the Logitech. There's a couple of things. First of all, Logitech is a long-tested, hardy company.
Yes.
The Logitech is going to last. It's well built. And it's dirt cheap. If you ever wanted to just experiment with an MMO mouse, that's kind of the way to go. I remember when my Naga broke and I was broke. My Naga broke and I was broke. And I looked online. I was like, the cheapest MMO mouse you can get is the G600. It's the Logitech G600. It has stellar reviews. It's super cheap. It's $40 at the most expensive. And you can get that cheaper, as Cryptic said, on sale. But I got it. I ordered it. I installed it. 19? Yeah, I mean, how could you beat that? I picked this thing up. I put my hand on it. I was like, nope. Immediately, that's all it took. I knew for sure the moment I put my hand on it, it wasn't going to work. I kept it for a week thinking I could maybe force myself into it. But because of my hand size and grip style, it actually was a no-go. Enough that I returned it and bought a mouse that was twice the price. And that's because, the getting a mouse that works perfectly for you is of paramount importance for us MMO gamers, man. It's got to feel super fluid. And one of the issues with the G600 is that it's a very bulbous mouse. It's a big fat turtle on your desk, man. And it really, in my opinion, it wants you to palm grip it. So if you have a palm grip and you wrap your hand around it, your palm is actually touching this big turtle of a mouse on your desk. And that's comfortable for you, then that's the way to go. Good for you. You win the mouse battle. You get the cheapest mouse and you can just buy a ton of them. Like that's the best way. But what Cryptic said is true. The sliding of the mouse thing of the side panel, and I'll let Cryptic talk, but I'll show it off here on the camera, is super nice.
Yeah, so the biggest issue with the Logitech is that its best feature is also its greatest downside. It has the pinky button, so it gives you you have 3 mouse buttons. You have left and right click, and then you have more than 3, but you have left and right click, and then you'll have a button like right here where I'm moving my...
Yeah, seriously, this is the left click, this is the right click, and then there's a third button here that your pinky rests on. It is crazy. That was one of the big selling points for me. I thought that's going to be the best push to talk key ever. You know what I mean? I was really stoked about that.
Yeah, that's its best feature. But the problem is that it's also what prevents you if you're, aside from the fact that it's a big mouse, if you're someone like me and Merrick, we're kind of like a hybrid. I'm a hybrid claw palm grip. What are you, Merrick? I think you're the same.
I'm a full-on fingertip grip. Full-on fingertip grip.
Fingertip.
I am fingertip.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're full fingertip.
What about you, Junie? What are you? I don't even know.
That's a really good question. I think
I will demo them right now. So here you go.
Demo them for me.
If you are a palm grip, your actual palm rests on the base of the mouse. So it looks like this.
Right, okay.
Right? So it looks like this. So your palm is actually touching. There's no gap between them. If you rest your fingers on left and right click, if you rest your fingers on left and right click and there's a gap like this, right? You can actually see it better from this side. But you see how there's like this gap here? And it's the pads of your fingers that are sitting on top of the mouse buttons. That is a fingertip grip. And finally, there's the claw grip, which actually has you like this. It has the tips of your fingers are pushing on left and right, and your hand actually looks like a claw. Can you see that? It's kind of like this is, to me, I actually know some claw grippers. It's definitely the more interesting and rarer of them, in my opinion. But like how you do a grip dramatically defines what you would be looking for from a mouse.
I think I have it's like my fingers are on the mouse, but they are pretty much touching the mouse. Like there's no real
Let's see
space.
it. Lift it up.
It's hard to show. It's like that.
You're a palmer.
Well, yeah, but it's not really, because it's a big mouse. My palm is not actually touching the mouse. It's my fingers.
At all?
No,
it's still close enough that I think you're
maybe
defined
this
as a palmer.
portion a little
Yeah,
bit there.
so I think you're like me then, Junie. You are a hybrid claw palm grip, or maybe the better description is like a hybrid fingertip palm grip.
Yeah.
Your fingers are gripping the mouse, that's what gives you your movement and stuff, but you still rest your palm a bit on the back a little bit, just to kind of.
Right, it's
I'm more
mostly
likely
the
to rest my
top
wrist
half.
on the mouse pad than I am to rest at no point does my palm actually touch the mouse. I think that's the defining factor.
Oh, because my palm, the bottom portion, the bottom half of my palm is on the desk, but the rest of it's resting on the mouse.
Yeah, that's still palm. You're still palm. I think that's pretty close.
So, I mean, anyway, I think the pinky button really precludes a lot of different grips. It precludes a lot of if when you put your hand around the mouse, if it just doesn't feel comfortable, it's just not the mouse for you. But like I said, it is the cheapest, so that's a good option. The scimitar is probably the next cheapest. I think that's the best one for most people. It fits many different grip styles, and it has the movable mouse or the movable button, so you can,
which defines hand size, right?
Yes.
If your hand, if your thumb doesn't naturally line up with the 5, which is I think where you kind of want it to be, and if you're unsure, the Corsair Scimitar is the way to go, because you unscrew this thing at the bottom and that whole pad, the entire 12 buttons, slides back and forth. It really makes it more customizable for you. So it's a good intro.
It's the mouse Junie was using, and me and Merrick both used it previously. The one thing I will say is that obviously you have to deal with IQ, which sucks. But yeah. Also, it's not a uniform mouse. It is not symmetrical. So if you hate asymmetrical mice, you will not if they feel weird in your hand, which is the opposite for me. I think
asymmetrical mice.
So here's my G502 Proteus. You see how one side looks, they're not even, and you look at the
because the one that we got, the Aerox 9, is super symmetrical.
This is not. The Corsair is the same. The Scimitar is this is messing with my focus on my camera. The Corsair is symmetrical or is asymmetrical.
That's right. It's really blurry.
So if that really bothers you, then that's something you're going to want to have to. That's something you're going to want to, maybe avoid. But so then the Aerox is another really good choice. It's wireless, and then when you have the Naga, I feel like the Naga is the worst choice right now.
You've heard my rant, right? Razer Naga was the one that I got initially. Razer Naga was the first kid on the block with the MMO mouse that was super popular, was super solid. There's been 12 iterations of Razer Nagas, and unfortunately the best one was 5 Nagas ago. So I think they've gone downhill. They're actually way worse than they used to be. I think the Trinity was the single dumbest idea that a peripheral. I mean that's probably wrong. They've made some really funny peripherals, but that was a really silly choice. It ruined the Naga for years because the only new Naga you could buy was Trinity. And what MMO mouse user, right, is snapping that plate off for a 2-button plate? Who does that? Who would ever do that? You're spending an extra $30-$40 for plates that are pointless.
Well, because I have 2 mice, so I've thought about it with mine, but it looks so uncomfortable and unwieldy.
I get used to 12 buttons. You could still only use 2 of them if you want. Why would you force yourself to get used to something else that's bad again? I don't want to screw with my muscle memory.
See, that's why I didn't get it, was because these 2 mice feel completely different.
What's up, man?
So I have muscle memory for each one, and if the mouse was exactly the same and all I did was swap out buttons, I feel like it would not work. I mean, I honestly personally feel like the Naga is the worst option, but there are 4 good options out there for anyone.
It also made it $100 not wireless.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous.
That being said, one last thing that I'd like to talk about with my super quick. Is there anything you don't like about it, Merrick? I
About the
have
Aerox?
I have two quick qualms with the Aerox that.
So one thing that I would warn other people about is that it is long. It's funny. What's up, SM Fox? Good to see you, bro. He says, "Howdy, I'm glad I made it, Merrick TV. Are you comparing lengths again?" We were sort of memeing about this yesterday, and the answer is yes. Length is a factor for sure. It is flatter than the Scimitar. In fact, the Scimitar feels like weirdly three-dimensional to me now that I've been using the Aerox, even just for a single day. But it's also long. So if you're not... there are certain grips I imagine, like if you are a palmer and you have smaller hands, I can imagine this maybe being a little weird. There's definitely a couple of like combinations that I could think are a little strange. The wireless is brand new to me. I've never used a wireless gaming mouse, so there's a little bit of a curve for me on that. But to be honest, so far, my only downside for this is the same downside that I would give to the Scimitar, and that is that the old razors. Now, maybe you guys in chat can remember this, but there was old Nagas. I don't even know if they still do this. Had an amazing feature where the scroll wheel itself could be tilted from side to side. So not only clicking it down, not only scrolling forward. What happened?
Discord. You disconnected from Discord.
I did?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me?
It looks like you're still on the stream. I don't know if the stream.
I mean, I can hear you guys. Did you guys stop hearing me for a second? Anybody in chat? Or is this on the local side of things?
I think it's on the local side of things because Junie.
Oh, look, Judy just died. Uh-oh.
Wow. Judy died. Wow.
Judy's dead, guys. I don't know. I think my wife is...
This is how rumors start. Oh my gosh.
Twitch is fine? Okay, nice.
Hold on.
And you can still hear all of us. Okay, while Junie fixes that, I'll just finish. The tilting of the scroll wheel was one of my favorite features that ever existed in a mouse. Essentially, if you scroll up, right, if you're like scrolling with the wheel, you're going like this, and it's like scroll and then lift and then touch again, scroll and then lift and then go down again, scroll. If you tilted the mouse wheel to the left or to the right, it would continually and evenly scan up or down on a page. So it would scroll down continuously, but not rigid, not like block, 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 block. It was like a continuous, nice scroll. And I really miss that. I use that for like all sorts of things, like navigating web pages, even in Guild Wars 2, going up and down in the gem store. I used it everywhere. Anywhere that it would accept up and down scrolling, it would accept this functionality. And it was amazing. And they got rid of it in all sorts of mice. And I'm super pissed because it was so awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that seems to be going away.
Emra, yeah,
me,
dude.
The two things that bother me is that
it was great.
One, I wish to set an infinite scroll wheel. It's not a big deal because I do have my Logitech that I use, and that has infinite scroll wheel. I do use it at work. Basically, the infinite scroll wheel, you unlock the wheel, and it'll spin for a very, very long time. Like it removes the friction from the wheel.
What?
So
I've never had a mouse like that in my life.
If you're scrolling through like a large Excel spreadsheet or database or something, basically, or if you're a writer, large Word document, you see like I don't know if you guys can see it, but you see how it's spinning. It just spin and spin and spin.
It's spinning right now as you're doing that.
Yeah. So that's it's
what kind of ball bearing ass thing is in that thing? How is that? That's crazy.
It takes whatever the ball bearing is in there. There's a friction on it, and when you press the button, it removes the friction. And when
I've never seen that. That's so cool.
And now it's just like a normal scroll wheel, and it has like tactile feedback. So I wish it had that, but I'm not too frustrated about that. It's just like a nice to have. The thing that does bother me is that, and this in IQ, Merrick, you can set a button so that it you can change what profile you're on, right? I think by default it's the buttons in the middle, but you can set any button to do that. In SteelSeries software, you can set a button to change to another profile, but it will not cycle profiles. So right now I have 3 profiles on this mouse, and 2 of them, right? I have it basically swapping between BDO and Guild Wars 2 profiles, but I have an ESO profile as well. So I can't swap to that one without going into the software. And out
of curiosity, what do you change in your profiles? It's not keybinds, right? It's what, sensitivity? I mean, what are you changing when you go between them?
No, it's keybinds. It's keybinds. Wow. The keybinds are, well, because BDO has like alt this, like the different key, like different things. So
why don't you change the keybinds in individual games and leave the mouse default? You know what I mean?
I could do that. I don't know. I don't know. I'd like doing it in the software itself.
Oh, okay. No, I got you.
Nice
That,
to have
you
it
know, that's
all in one place.
everybody does different things with it, and that's because I've never even played with it. In fact, if I accidentally hit the profile swap button, that's the first thing that I unbind on a mouse. I want that gone immediately so I don't screw with it, because it's that and the DPI button.
Yeah. Well, for you, this is just the DPI button. There's no profile. I rebound this to the DPI one. I always unbind, but this one I've rebound to. I've rebound to the profile shift, and basically all it does is I can swap to a profile, and then from that profile I can then have it swap to another one. So theoretically I could set it up so chain profiles so that they swap back and forth, and I could cycle that way. But that seems a little bit much, right? Like, I like the manual control, but I would also I would love just an option to just cycle profiles if I wanted to, instead of having to go in and pick individual profiles for me to then cycle through. But yeah, those are just minor qualms. Other than that, I think it's a fantastic mouse. So
10 out of 10 so far. I'm gonna keep it and use it consistently for about another week, and then I'm gonna do my review. I want to make sure that I get a full experience with it. You know?
Yeah. So, moving on from a topic that since we're agreeing so much, we're just in perfect alignment here, perfect sync. We're gonna move on to a topic
I hate you.
we hate each other. We're gonna fight over. Let's talk about Teapot's video and low intensity builds. For those of you that don't know, Teapot put out a video today. It was streamed a couple of days ago, I believe, but he put out a video on his YouTube channel today. I will drop it in chat for anyone that is curious. It's also in our Coffee Break Discord. Basically, Brazil and some other people put together a competition to get submissions for low intensity builds. And a low intensity build is just anything. I think their requirements were less than 20 actions, 20 or less actions per minute. And for anyone who doesn't know, an action per minute is just how many clicks you're doing within a minute time frame. It could be button clicks, whatever, any input. And then there was another requirement. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
There was one more requirement, but basically they wanted low intensity, easy to learn, easy to get into for the most part, and doesn't mean that there's not a lot you could add to it in the future. They pointed that out in several builds that that you can really,
like, it could be a starting point, and you could add just something else to be a little bit more damage, add a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah. And Teapot was really good at pointing out all the little things you could add to it. But they had requirements to keep the builds low intensity. And first off, I just want to say, before we get into any kind of debate, I'm glad this video exists. I'm glad these builds exist. I want more of these.
Yeah, hold on. That's my first question for both you and Junie. How do you even feel about that? Like, how do you feel about the desire and the popularizing of easy to do high damage builds? Do you think this is something that's good for the community? Do you think this is something that we should be drawing a ton of attention to? Is this highlighting a problem, or is this actually showcasing things that are going to be more make raids more inclusive? Is that how do you feel about it? You think it's good, Cryptic?
Well, so you had me up until you said high damage. Like, I was like,
that's when it gets complicated.
Yeah, man. I love these low intensity builds. I love the community's doing this, dude. One of the best parts was at the end when they were shouting out to the that community for people with disabilities and things like that.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, they basically, the whole community is all about like teaching people different ways to be able to play Guild Wars 2 and do all the different things in Guild Wars that they want to do, even raids and stuff. While still dealing with, the different disabilities and different things that make it hard for people to play a game like Guild Wars 2, right? And so that's awesome. Like, that's fantastic. This is exactly, and these builds are perfect for that. They're absolutely perfect. And they're perfect for other things too, getting people into raids and build craft and stuff like that. They're phenomenal for all those things. But then you lost me when you said high damage, because what do you mean by high damage? Do you mean...
the reason why Cryptic is very conflicted about this is because it speaks directly to the debate we're going to have about Mechanist in particular, but several builds. I think I would call it the swing that we've been seeing in a specific direction of more. First of all, there's huge power creep. Damage is just extreme now. What used to be 37K is now 41K. And even at 37K, we used to feel like that was really high. Things have really increased in this extreme way. But they've also trended towards being easier to do. Some of the strongest builds in the game right now, in fact, I would argue the 2 strongest builds in the entire game right now, are way easier to play than any top build has ever been. Well, that's probably not true. Dagger Power Thief back in the day was incredibly strong and incredibly easy. But
there were a lot of different. There were some simple ones that did ridiculous damage that got nerfed, but there were also like a lot of like, I don't want to say memey, but there were some more like pistol. Deadeye is one that comes to mind. Obviously you have SMP3.
Pistol Deadeye. Pistol Deadeye is super easy, but it's 28k or something.
Yeah, no, okay. I just thought you were talking about simple rotations in general. I mean, if you're talking about the higher end ones, those were all broken and got nerfed. So,
well, like I said, I think like Dagger, the one that I always remembered was Dagger Power Daredevil, which was. Deadeye, sorry. When Deadeye first came out, no one was using rifle. It was Dagger, and they were DPS king. In fact, Thief stayed on top for like a really long time in a very easy to do rotation. That was the first version of that I'd seen that felt really easy. But there was also maybe overperforming. And those poor, Emra, the 511, like we remember this, right? There's a whole song about it, actually. You can't go wrong if you go with Thief. But seriously, like these days, right now, what we're seeing is like this thing that is overlapping. We're seeing these builds, this trend towards the new elite specs being a lot easier to perform the rotations of, and the power creep at the same time. It's feeling really, really extreme. But what before we get into the nitty gritty, what do you think, Junie? Do you think the competition was a good thing? Do you think the exposure of these builds is a good thing? Do you think this kind of?
I think it's inevitable. I think they need to create some sort of stepping stone for the rest of the community. What did you say? Oh,
nothing. I was just thanking Thrones for the follow.
Quietly,
I think you need to not interrupt you.
I think you have to have like some sort of stepping stone for the rest of the community, because we know raiders are the minority, right? So having something for the rest of the community to be able to get into raids, to have something that's simple, to learn the mechanics, I think all of that is definitely a good thing. I do understand though the other side of it. Obviously, if for the people who are doing the harder builds, they're going to feel like, oh, well, then I have to just do this, which is a super boring rotation, and maybe I don't like it as much. And I do get that, but you need to have something for the rest of the community to get into endgame content. If ArenaNet wants to push that, if they want to start making harder content for the general populace, which they clearly did want to because of the meta event for the expansion. So like that is where they're headed. So I can see why they're doing this.
So you feel like it's inclusive and it's going to, so that's a whole debate by itself. I would love to do an entire podcast on this. The truth is that like the raid environment in Guild Wars 2, right now what I'm seeing is 2 different things. It's a consistent problem in the raid scene, the end game scene of Guild Wars 2, that we always feel like there's not enough players to fill out our game mode. We have no illusions. We know for sure that we're not getting enough content for our game mode, and we also know why. Right? There's no confusion here. We know that there's not enough content, and we also know that there's like 5% of the entire game base that is playing this content. So we totally understand. So we would like to include, right? Be as inclusive as possible, and inviting as possible, make it stepping stones, right? I remember strikes were really polarizing when they first came out, but I was very on board because I was like, if this is literally going to work the way they want it to and serve as a stepping stone to encourage people to go from, personal story or whatever and walk into raids, it's going to be worth it. That's what we want. We want it to be good. But then it's also become this weird isolated, sitting and brooding for a long time community of people that have been by themselves, a small community of raiders for a long time, getting grumpier and grumpier. And we see that expressed in a lot of different ways. But one of those ways is that those people are really upset right now that there are builds. In fact, you'll hear it from Cryptic in just a second. And spoiler alert, I actually agree with Cryptic on this part. But there's a lot of raiders like us who have been raiding a long time, who have put a lot of effort in, who feel like these builds that are too easy now are being too highly rewarded. And that trend towards easier is actually bad for us, even though it's probably good for the raid scene at large in the long run. Do you see what I mean by that? It's a weird dynamic that we're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I see what you mean. I think it is good for the game as a whole, especially the hardcore content community bringing in new people. I think that my concern though is is it good? Is it going to be good for sustaining people? It's good for bringing in new people, but sustaining people. What is the thing that we point to in Guild Wars that is your progression? It's your personal skill level, right? That is the
Well,
progression because
your own personal goals, whatever that
yeah,
might be. For us, it's our skill progression, right? That for Cryptic and I think we can absolutely say that's true. But everybody sets their own different goals, I guess, right?
well, I mean, I think people whose goals are going to be, I mean, like you said, there are different goals, but a lot of people's goals are going to be to get in raids and get out and stuff like that. I mean, they're not going to be in the community for a long time anyway, right? So for like long-term player retention for people like Snow Crows and
Four
Prince of
hardcore raiders already. Yeah.
yeah, well, I don't just mean those were a lot of those people now. I mean, we look at the win roster now, and none of those people are the people that were on there when we got into rating, right? Um,
Oh,
uh,
they're all there in Lost Ark.
yeah,
Win
um,
is a very advanced raid team in Guild Wars 2. It's NA's finest team, and unfortunately, led by Diaxon, and unfortunately, they've not been super interested, and they've sort of moved on to, they'll always be back. That's the thing about Guild Wars 2. Everybody comes back, but right now, the raid scene has seen a hiatus from some of their stronger players into Lost Ark.
well, I don't just mean right now. I mean in general, though, right? Like a lot of the people that are those people that are in Lost Ark right now that would be playing Guild Wars 2. A lot of them were not in Win before or previously. And people come and go, is what I'm saying. And
Mm.
those people that are doing that kind of content that are joining Win and joining these other groups, they are just like ourselves and stuff like that. They are people that are interested in the same kind of progression that we are, but they are also the same people that put out all these guides and content and stuff, stuff of that nature, right?
Sure.
So you're going to lose that portion of the community if what you're doing is capping the personal progression of people, because that's what's keeping them invested in the game, right?
So if the skill ceiling is too low and the
low.
players hit that ceiling too easily, the players who are continually playing this game with the goal that's keeping them there being to increase their skill in this game are going to get really bored and leave. That's what you mean. Because games like Final Fantasy 14, who have a lower skill cap in terms of rotational performance, are kept in the game because of external goals that the game itself provides, where Guild Wars 2 does not have those. That's what you mean?
Yep. And so basically what you're going to end up with is a rotating cycle of new people that are interested in this content, and it's more easily
then leave
for them. But then they're just going to leave. And the people that, I don't just mean old guard, but people that are, like maybe let's say 10% of those new people would stay and be, become hardcore raiders, right? Those 10% are never going to stay. So you're never going to have a retention cycle. It's just going to be new people cycling in and out, in and out.
Yeah,
and
I can see where you're
there's
going
never
with
going to be a retention. So that's my concern as far as the long term. But I mean, like I said, I think overall these builds are a positive force. I just want them to be tuned back, or buff other things. But I'd rather them be nerfed because I feel like we have way too much power creep in general. So.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I want to catch up on some chat and see if we can bring in some discussion. Granny says maybe once folks get the mechanics down, they will want to play harder characters, though, and that's true. I think where we're at is that we think those builds should exist. But classically, like I would say Power Reaper is a great example. Power Reaper has an easier rotation, more streamlined build, a lot of cool utility for a newbie raider, and is a good starting point, but is only really going to beat people in certain fights in the hands of a really professional player. And if they're, if they're getting really good and they want to take a step to harder builds, those harder builds are going to yield higher damage. The problem, I think, with Cryptic in particular is that he doesn't like the fact that some of the easiest builds are actually the strongest builds. So I've always said, and this was a big thing, right? Because I played a lot of Power Reaper and a lot of other Reaper enthusiasts who were like, oh yeah, Merrick popularized Reaper. Reaper's so good. If only it was better. If only it got buffed another 3K and could compete with other DPS builds. And my answer to that was, No, I'm a hardcore Reaper player. I love this class, and I wouldn't want it buffed. And the reason for that is that some of the strengths of the class already would have to be nerfed in terms of like not just damage, but other iconically Reaper things would have to be changed, like its survivability to bring that damage up. But also its rotation is pretty streamlined. Like I don't think that it should have gotten a buff. I was happy that I don't think that all DPS should be created equal. I think that there should be some that are easier to play, maybe more approachable, difficult in a different way. Like there should be some room for self-expression or things that work better for you versus somebody else. But when you have things that are like really, really strong, you know, and here's the thing, right? If Granny's very new to raiding, if Granny came in and picked up a Mechanist because the damage is so high and the rotation is more streamlined, she could perform acceptable numbers that would not get her kicked from a raid. And so that's really great. So in some ways, it's really solid. But then when you put the Condi Mechanist in the hands of like me or Cryptic or somebody, you know, like then the damage becomes really, 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 really high. And it's really, really high in a way that maybe I should have to work a little harder to obtain those numbers. Like I fully acknowledge that might be true.
He's like maybe as he pulls his hat down.
Yeah, just maybe. I mean, I'm not talking about me specifically. You know, I don't know. So that is important.
Yeah,
and
but
I
don't
think
you
that's
think
a
you
factor.
could put them in like tiers, or not official tiers, but just have it be that some of maybe the easier rotations are a little bit less, just so that it doesn't affect people's personal competition, but at the same time, it's still something that's, like you said, viable for a raid where you're going to be able to do enough DPS that you'll be able to clear these bosses and help your group.
Yes.
Yeah,
So an example of Mechanist is I wouldn't want it nerfed to the point of a Reaper. I wouldn't want it at 34K, but
No, me neither.
36.
Unless they nerf everything down.
Maybe take 2K off of it, right? Because like let's first of all let's put it in perspective. Some of it is not just its performance. Some of it is just its ease of getting the numbers that it has, because its actual performance on paper is like 20th down on the DPS benchmark page. It literally is. It's like 38K when there's like a crap ton of 39s, 40s, and 41s now. So it's not even at the very top, but there's very little that's going to stop you from being able to do that damage in an actual raid environment. So that is a factor as well.
Yeah. And we'll get to that. We'll get to damage application in a second, because that's one of my biggest issues with Mechanist and Virtuoso. But
Virtuoso for sure, yeah.
Yeah, to address what Granny and Fox were saying, like.
Yeah, I want to say what Fox said. Can you read that one? I don't want to miss that message there.
Sure. He said, if you harp on damage too much, you're actually discounting another skill of raiding, and that is understanding boss/area mechanics that raiders will still excel at. That's true. The issue. I'll take two issues with that. One, after you've done the same raid, 20 times, and you understand the mechanics, and you've got a good feel for it. There's only so much progression to be had there. When builds change, because like the boss fights don't change, right? The builds will change with each balance patch. So new classes are going to come in, new things will be better, new things will be worse, and there will be reasons to practicing it better at those things. The boss fight itself Karen has always been the same, or not always, but it's been mostly the same.
Fights only change when our new builds augment the strategies that we do. That's the only time a fight changes. But that is also the best content for raiders, is when there's a new balance patch and it now uncovers new builds, and then you bring those new builds that you've learned that have new tools, right? New skills, new tools, and find ways to apply those new tools to the old fights that you've been doing for a long time. Like for me, that's what keeps me going,
Yeah, and I don't think we're discounting somebody's understanding of mechanics or anything. It's not an issue to talk about the diluting of the skill ceiling and the progression of individual skill when it comes to builds and DPS and supports, and not that doesn't mean you're taking away from another segment. Like this is still an issue that needs to be addressed. And we can still, we have so many things, so few things in Guild Wars 2 as far as progression in general is. We wouldn't want to be diluting one of the areas of progression in general just because, there's another, you can get better at dodging mechanics or get better at skipping. I mean, you can go through most of the raids in Guild Wars 2 without being healed. So, you can.
Don't say that. That's toxic.
Well, it's true. You can continue to work on that and use that as a point of progression, but we shouldn't be saying, oh, because that exists, we can't actually fix other areas where progression is being diluted. Personal progression, which is in my opinion, the main, if not only, progression there is in Guild Wars 2. And then the other thing that I wanted to address was Granny saying, and this also kind of talks about what Fox as well. Granny saying, that once they get the mechanics down, they might want to play something harder. My question is why? And it's mech. Condi Mech is a good example of why. Like, why would you play anything else but J Drive Condi Mech on most of the Condi bosses? But I think a better example is, why would you play anything but Heal Mech on any of the bosses? Like, Heal Mech is amazing. It is ridiculously amazing, and is in my opinion, the simplest of all the Mechanist builds right now. I was going to tell you this, Merrick, earlier when we were talking about this behind the scenes. One of the things that I think adds a lot of nuance, and you were talking about this, adds a lot of nuance to J Drive Condi Mech, is the mech skills. They are so easy to interrupt. They don't activate constantly.
Yep.
You have to stay on top of them.
Some of them require you to let them finish. Some of them will interrupt other ones, and they don't have a skill queuing system, and it isn't very evident when one doesn't go off. So you have to really be attentive to it. It's very easy to screw that up.
Yes, it is. And that's not something I've played. I've played all the mech builds. And Heal Mech suffers from this the least. Obviously the skills change depending on which elite you pick and stuff like that, but it's still, for the most part, they should still function mostly the same. They should be trying to unify these and not make them massively different when it comes to when I click a button, how it activates, right? When I click a button with a pet in Ranger, there are some differences, but I'm not sitting there like, why is this constantly getting interrupted on this one skill when no other cat pet has this problem, right? Like, like all the pounces with the cats and the roars, they all function mostly the same. And I don't understand why that's not more the case with Mechanist. And J Drive suffers the worst. It drives me insane.
So.
Yeah, it 100%. There's no argument there. I've played all three of them.
Thank you for the
maybe not super as extensively as other people, but I've played them a decent amount. And the J Drive one is the worst, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. It's hitting those mech skills it's so difficult, so frustrating, and there's so many issues with it.
I feel like some of it is it's design that doesn't really need to be there, and then there's also some issues with like how evident it is. First of all, I don't see that there's any reason why skill queuing shouldn't exist on your Mechanist. It's literally replacing your tool belt skills.
Yeah,
it should just use skill queuing. It should also be very evident when it's not being used. There's so many times when you're first learning it, you're mashing those buttons and it's not going off. You're like, what's wrong? What's happening? And even worse is when you think you used it and you didn't use it, and you spend a whole long time without noticing that it even works or didn't work. So that's definitely a big issue. I also want to catch up. We got a lot of good things being said. The Throne says, this is a question. What MK9 fighter do you think you are? If you were one and the others two. I don't play a lot of Mortal Kombat. I'm a Street Fighter fan. Okay. And Cody is my main. Thank you very much. Emma says, it's a good point you're making. What makes the game fun for me is execution of rotations. And if they are too easy, they will still be engaging. So if they are too easy, will they still be engaging? And I think that's, to Cryptic's point, I think the answer is no. At least for somebody who's reached the cap, right? I think for somebody who is being introduced to doing DPS in a raid and is a total newbie, and they're not going to hit the skill ceiling of even J-Drive Mechanist, they'll never get tired of it. And Cryptic's right. If you really get decent numbers of that, why would you feel drawn to play anything else? And the truth is in raids outside of probably just Samurag, you can actually play Condi Mechanist. I'm not Samurag. CA. Outside of CA, you can basically play Condi Mechanist in every boss in the game. Whether or not that is a downside to me, is up in the air. I don't really know if that's bad. Does that really necessitate a problem? Like, there are certain people that want to main one thing. Cryptic Villain here, who's spouting this stuff, plays 2 characters. That's it. He plays a Condi Renegade and a Power Holosmith, and has, since I have known him, just played those 2 builds.
I
So
mean,
there are people that are
Warrior,
dedicated.
I
I
kind of
blocked it
enjoy
out. I don't
only
remember that.
playing a couple of builds as well. I don't really want to be across all of my characters, like 2, maybe 3.
I also
And in Guild Wars 2, that's
20
unique,
builds on those
right?
characters.
Well, like mains in general are sort of a thing in most games. I would say that this is almost like a uniquely Guild Wars 2 problem, because when you get into the end game, and I try to explain this to players who have only played WoW and have never actually played Guild Wars 2, it is such a weird dynamic. By the time you get to max level, every subsequent character that you get to level 80 makes following characters even easier to level 80. And since all gear is transferable, the best in slot gear is account bound, and there's no vertical progression, essentially everyone is sort of expected to have one of everything. And you're supposed to swap. I mean, it's easier nowadays. Would you say that that's true, Cryptic? It used to be that you were sort of expected to swap to the best thing that could be played on that boss every time you swapped around. Power creep has made it so it's a little bit more accessible these days.
Yeah, it's easier for 2 reasons. One, you can swap with, we have templates, we have build templates, we have more legendary stuff in the game. You can go into full legendary everything. So it's easier now than it was before. But then the other reason is, like you said, power creep. You can pretty much play one thing on most of the bosses without having to swap very often. And this is to, Granny and Fox, they both making the same point here about personal progression, about wanting to try something new for your own sake. I agree with that. Yeah. And that is what drives most of Guild Wars 2. I don't think that detracts from our points here that I think me and Merrick and Junie are making, that just because personal progression is an option and is the main option in Guild Wars 2 doesn't mean that's the way it should be. If we're asking ArenaNet to fix certain things, why shouldn't we be asking them to put more tangible progression points in the game? More reasons why I would want to switch to another build. Right now, you said I don't know what support you were learning before, but you said you were feeling, some anxiety about Druid, and that makes perfect sense. I'm not a support player. I would feel, some anxiety about learning to play Druid without learning to play any other support first.
I would feel anxiety about Cryptic playing support too.
But and that personal progression is there, and it's great that motivation is there. But if you learned, as an example, let's say you learned heal mech first, people are going to rather you play the heal mech right now. In fact, most groups are going to ask you if you give them the choice. So not only are you not going to get the option to play your Druid very often, because most groups are going to ask you to just play your heal mech, but then on top of that, the game isn't incentivizing diversity. And that is one of their big points. They're making all these changes for diversity's sake, and it feels like they're making a lot of these changes without realizing
they're making changes. They're making changes for viability's sake, right? Like, everything is viable. They want more things viable, but to encourage versatility has never been a thing for them. I think, like, in almost every meta, like, class stacking ends up being a reality. Sort of like, whatever the best thing is, you bring all of those. You know what I mean? And that's such a downside for them.
You're right about viability, but diversity is definitely a point with them in this one. They wouldn't have made Boone's 5-man and made some of those changes with getting rid of Druid spirits and warrior banners and stuff like that. That has to be a diversity thing, because they want
just bring back mirror comp.
Yeah, which is what it really is.
A possibility. We haven't seen it yet, but it might just be mirror comp coming back.
It might just be mirror comp. It's probably going to be mirror comp. But I mean, that's off topic anyway. To focus on the Teapot's video and these low intensity builds. Like I said, I think they're a good thing, and I focus a lot on Mechanist because I can argue about Mechanist because I play it and I know someone else who plays it at a very high level. So I played all the Mechanist builds. Say that again, Merrick.
Oh, who? I was just wondering who you know.
Oh yeah, it's some guy. Is it Virus? There you go.
Oh no! No. A dagger in my heart.
Obviously, Merrick plays it at an extremely high level. No, it's it's easy for me to pick on Mechanist because it is the thing that's in the forefront right now. If me and Merrick were both playing Virtuoso, I'd be picking on Virtuoso,
Yeah,
or any of the other,
basically everything that we say about Mechanist
or
really applies to
Harbinger.
Virtuoso also.
Yeah, it
By the
does.
way, you're scaring the crap out of Flying Triangle. He says, wait, so my Druid is not needed? Don't go down that road. Druid is very needed. Everybody, in fact, I lament the missing Druid in every group that I'm in. The fact is that the community has overreacted to what is coming soon. And what you should know is that now that we know what direction is going to happen with Druid, Druid is actually going to become a mainstay even more. So right now it's kind of being looked at weirdly, but it's going to be providing an essential boon, which is the new thing,
I
very
disagree.
soon. And I believe it's going to be back because unless we know for sure that they're going to eliminate other things, it's going to be in a really good spot to provide that essential boon and some of the bonus utility that I think it brings. I think that there's too much hype about heal mechanists. I think 99% of groups that are out there don't consider that as essential as Cryptic is making it out to be. I think Druid is actually going to be in a really good place come the summer patch. You just quote me right now. Let's see what happens in 2 months.
I don't think Druid brings enough to the table to supplant a heal Mechanist, and if people
No
see the
triangle,
heal
it won't.
Mechanist-
Sorry.
even heal Mechanist is out. Yeah, Tempest is dead. Sorry.
I wish, dude. I wish. They hate Tempest. I don't know why.
Yeah, somebody really hates Tempest at Arena. But even if heal Mechanist isn't enough to supplant it alone, I do think the other issue is that you can very easily hybridize Soul Beast and get that boon and also still do like 28-30k DPS, right? And I think that the era of 4 to 6 supports, I'm not joking, the era of 4 to 6 supports in a raid is now.
He's talking about the necessity of hybridization in supports.
Yes.
So
and hybridization is going to be king, and Soul Beast has always been good at that and is going to be even better now that it's going to have a little thing that just gives alacrity. Or is it alacrity or quickness? I think it's alacrity.
alacrity. Yeah. Banners is quickness and it's alacrity.
Yeah.
But in the era of like so somebody back me up, but I know Isa's in here. What's up, Isa? What is the state of Spotter? My understanding is the Spotter's not being removed. Is that true? Can somebody confirm this for me? Isa says Soul Beast Alack is probably not a thing because the boons will likely be on the nature magic trait line, and Soul Beast is absolutely going to be useless if you take nature. More useless than Untamed. Oh no, that's quite a statement.
So it's not going to be intrinsic to the spirit or whatever they're replacing it with.
It might be a trait or that needs to be taken or has to be taken to buff to viability.
I apologize
providing
if
of
this information is out there already, but
this is also theory crafting. We don't actually know everything here yet. So.
Okay. I thought this was just all theory crafting. I thought that the spirit was going to remain. They were just going to change the way it works and then obviously add alacrity. So they were going to remove like the Frost Spirit boon and then give it alacrity. Like if it's a trait, I mean that's good for Druid's sake, but that's good for Druid. But what are they changing with the spirit then? It doesn't make sense to me. Like, what does the spirit do if it doesn't give alacrity by default?
Yeah, it could be some other boon and then also alacrity with the trait, or it could just be that it provides a little bit of alacrity and 3 times the alacrity with the trait. I mean, we don't know how that's gonna.
Both of those options are good for Druid, though. So I that's better than here's a thing that gives a lot of alacrity.
And listen, bro, like you guys out there that are sort of lamenting the death of Druid, I'm 100% with you. I think that Druid's home is in raids. Like if you unhinge it from raiding, I think you kill the class. I understand that it has some SPVP viability, but that class was designed with raids in mind. I think it's the purest of supports. It's always been A, hard to dethrone, and B, I've never felt incentivized to want it dethroned because I didn't really feel like it had a good place outside of that.
Well, it doesn't have another place or purpose, really. I mean, it was created when raids were created.
It was. Yeah. It was created as the first dedicated support when raids came out and they realized they needed a support. So I understand that. And there are, of course, like from time to time, Druid is at a point where it's actually strong in PvP, SPVP, more than World v World, I think. And so that's sort of neither here nor there. I think when you take that, you're capitalizing on some of what Druid is, but not everything that Druid, I think, wants to be. I really think it's been our quintessential support for a long time. I wouldn't really want to see it removed from the meta. I don't even play Druid, but I feel like it's in a good place. I'm like Triangle though. If I could have anything, I want Tempest. I want Tempest as a support. I feel like Tempest as a support would be a wonderful thing. I think the class is built for it, but the world in which we live in right now is entirely defined by essential boon providing, right? You can't actually do, it doesn't matter what other peripheral support you happen to manage if you're not providing quickness or alacrity at this point.
I mean,
just kind of what it
in
comes
my
down to.
Teapot's video, he's surmised that or speculated that Tempest will get an essential boon in the next couple of balance patches. So.
Please, please let that be a thing. It would be
I hope
very
so.
exciting. I sort of lost hope for it when they gave when they gave Catalyst quickness. I was like, no. This was your opportunity to make, to make Tempest have a role in raiding, because right now it really just doesn't.
To me, it feels like there are. I know it's probably just the balance team, but it feels like there are two balance teams. There is what was coming out for EOD, and then the expansion balance team, and then the people that are actually tweaking the balance of the game in general, patch to patch. And those people are trying to promote diversity and versatility and stuff like that.
What about the team that just balances from YouTube videos on Snowcrows? Sorry. I just erase that. I would never say anything bad. Yeah, their balance team is spot on. That's the whole team there. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Anyway.
No, but then the other team is focused on the, making these things good for EOD, making Catalyst good, making Mechanist good, and all that stuff. And that's good. But what you ended up with
making Untamed good.
Oh yeah, what happened with Untamed, guys? Come on.
Listen. Again, quote me, but I bet you it gets a big buff in this next patch. I bet you it does. I really do.
Yeah.
I do. I don't want to skip before we get too far because I'm just scrolling up and we totally missed Val Hallex. What's up, Val? He says, what do you feel about the DPS benchmarks being at 41K in general and how mechanics can be skipped because the DPS is so high? The overall discussion about, because we're talking supports right now, but I think the DPS is probably the bigger problem. Wouldn't you say? Like, if you had to point to a single thing you'd like to change about raids, I won't speak for Cryptic. If I had my way, and I've said this before, this is a hot take for some, I would legitimately take the entire, I would kill everyone's DPS by about 7K. I think 35K should be like the pinnacle of DPS. I think that 41K is disgusting. I think that it's hilarious to me that most raiders have said raids are too easy for a long time, and then the overarching trend over the last 2 years is to trivialize it even further in terms of overall DPS creep. I think that it sort of robs fights of their uniqueness and their mechanics. You know how excited I would be if groups had to do updrafts in Gorseval? The fight is trivial. Like its core mechanic, in fact, is overwritten. Like that's its number one thing. Right? We do Spirit Run to learn how to break down walls, and then we go into Gorseval so that we break down walls. We break no walls. We just break Gorseval. It's just ridiculous.
If that's what you want, 35K is not enough, though.
You're right. It's probably not.
32, 33 is probably what
okay. I'd take 32, because otherwise we gate too many people out of raids.
Even then, there are probably still going to be groups that manage to do it without it. But yeah, 32, 33, maybe. And with the 5-man boons, maybe you could do 34 and get away with it. But yeah, I agree. I want it to be down to 34, 35. I think that's what the pinnacle should be. And those should be difficult builds to play, or well, at least like the 35, 36 range, right? That should be like maybe the difficult builds to play.
Sure. That feels about right.
We can workshop it.
Because we remember what things were like when that was the case, right? Like the raid scene was very different back then. And I liked... So like that did allow some really meta groups to be able to have some fun and do some things that were different from everyone else, right? But like the meta strategies of old are the pug strats of modern day. And that just means that no one is experiencing doing things, that we used to have to do. Like even greens, like when was the last time you saw a green group in VG or Cairn? Like nobody does it. It's not even just power creep. It's like everything creep has gotten very strong. And then this most recent expansion, what do? They raised everyone's HP by 2K for no reason. Everyone's HP just got raised by 2K to make it further trivial. Like it's almost that served no purpose, by the way. There was no point to that. Everyone just got a 2K bonus. Like if you want to know, like is ArenaNet trying to trivialize raids or make it easier.
I think they
I
are.
should say not trivialize, but to make it easier intentionally by making builds do more damage, making them easier to
And
perform,
avoid the
and by
variance.
increasing survivability just to increase their raid pool. I think it's hard to say that there's any way you could deny it, right, at this point. So, especially with
I
the
agree.
HP cores. The hell was that?
No,
The hell was that about?
I agree entirely. I think like, Isaac's talking about like 32, 34K for damage, 28, 20, 25 to 28K for boon givers. I think that's right around the numbers that I'd be
Yeah,
looking for.
that's not bad.
And you talked about their balancing for viability, like the changes they're making are for viability. Those are the kind of changes I would expect for viability, standardizing certain things across classes to make things viable no matter what you play. The changes they're making to me are squarely aimed at diversity because they are changes that on paper only seem like they shuffle up what you can bring to a raid, but with what we got with EOD ended up just constricting it. So like I really I don't know, like I agree with both diversity and viability. It's just weird to me that the direction that they've taken with some of these things have really ended up clashing with each other more than working towards a unified goal, if you know what I mean.
Well, like all things ArenaNet and all things Guild Wars 2, I think they try a big catch-all approach. So they're trying to appeal to as many people as possible at once. And the biggest group of people that they're ever trying to catch are the casuals. Now, like you can hear that unspoken word. Right, you all heard it, like the filthy casuals. It's for some reason there's a really negative.
I didn't say that.
Well,
Whoa.
I know, but it's part of the discussion.
Cancel this guy.
It's
Cancel this guy.
I am already canceled. It's a part of the discussion, right? Because there's like a negative connotation. There's like a view to casual players. But Guild Wars 2, in the grand scheme of MMOs, is probably the most casual MMO I've ever played in my life. So you can't even fault them for this, right? Like this is what they're trying to do. This is what they're trying to. It's almost annoying. Right, like it's not even the raid encounters. It's not like the raid encounters are so unique and special and cool. That's not why we're here either. The entirety of what keeps hardcore gamers in Guild Wars 2 is the combat system. And it's almost like, how dare you make such a good combat system in this game that is super casual? Like it's almost upsetting. It's like if you're going to make that and bait us in here, like, and this is a compliment. It might be a left-handed compliment, but it definitely is one. You made an incredible combat system and then didn't back it up at all. In fact, I would say that like 85% of all gamers in Guild Wars 2 are taking advantage of maybe 40% of the potential of their combat system, right? They're really not pushing that at all. Most people will never see the level of optimization that raiding in the combat system in Guild Wars 2 is capable of. And there's almost no reward for it for those who do, right? So it's very confusing. And Isaac's right, dude. If you took the combat system of Guild Wars 2, which is, in my opinion, bar none the best. I mean, there are more action-oriented things like BDO, but like this is the perfect hybridization of action combat and MMO combat together, where you are truly rewarded for the effort and skill that you put in. Right. And I say this all the time. It's like World of Warcraft, 2 fire mages. One's really good, one's mediocre. There's a difference, but it's not a huge difference. The difference between a mediocre DPS and a really skilled DPS in Guild Wars 2 is astronomical, right? You're like, I'm doing 45%, 50% of the entire group's DPS. You know what I mean? It is huge. So if you drop that into a game that rewards it, like Final Fantasy. I know Cryptic doesn't like Final Fantasy, but
no.
It would be huge.
We're interested in Final Fantasy if it
had the combat system.
Yeah. I mean, and I've always agreed the Guild Wars 2 combat system is the best. I mean, even better than BDO. So I think that this is something that it's a shame that it feels like it's being diluted now. And I guess to finish up with the topic about Teapot's video, I'm hoping that these things get reined in. I'm hoping that we start to see like a leveling of, because I think we're on the same page here. I mean, obviously, we're not trying not to harp too much on one class or the other with Virtuoso or Mechanist or anything. But I think overall we agree a lot of these classes need to be reined back in, and reward has to be put in place for classes that require more, that require that have a higher skill ceiling, that require more nuance to them. Because right now, I mean, I think we both agree. I know you haven't played the other version of Conde Mechanist, but I mean, I've played them both. Your version is just better. right? I think across the board
For what?
between the utility that it has and the
J Drive
confusion
versus
they
J
can apply-
Dynamo.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's objectively better.
yeah,
It's just
objectively
better.
I mean, and I put a lot of time into Dynamo.
Ask Cryptic
And,
if he's ever scraped 5K of DPS within range of the J Drive. It's just not. It's not fair. It's not even like a competition.
It depends on the boss. You can get kind of close on a few of the bosses, and if I was better at it, I think it would be even closer. But
if you were really good and the boss attacked slowly and never moved,
yeah, there you go.
Then maybe.
I mean, we've had a few where it's been like 4K on bosses that don't move too much. When it comes to like Soulless Horror, like it's the gap starts to grow. It's like 5-6K. The gap starts to grow.
Huge movement and fast attack speed. That's where it comes in. Somebody even brought this up, right? Somebody was saying poor Weaver, and that really is like a huge deal, right? Because I think that Cryptic is right. I think that you should be rewarded for the complexity of a build, right? Like in my humble opinion, okay, in the humble opinion of this purple and blue television, I really truly believe that Weaver or Elementalist in general should basically always be on top of the meters. It's always the hardest rotation. It just is. You know, I understand there's some things out there like Condi Engie or whatever. Why are you doing that? It's realistically the most complicated rotation. It is the squishiest class in the game. It's got 11.6k base HP prior to cores, of course. Sorry, and it's got limited locked utility. There's so much weird shit about that class that makes it almost like it's not just a learning curve in just its rotation, but also in its positioning and its knowledge of breaking the rotation so that you can get to the utility that you want, or the CC, or the whatever. And like, there's so many limiting factors on that class that it should almost always be top DPS. And right now, you're seeing builds that have like middle of the road HP, easier, like tremendously easier rotations. And anytime I see, I don't know about you, Cryptic, but whenever I see a Weaver, an Ellie in general, joins my group, I'm like, I know you're going to be awesome or terrible. And there's almost no gap in between. And it's just because there's enthusiasts out there that are going to work their ass off to make that better, or people that are like, I really want to play an Ellie, and they just, they get ripped to shreds.
Well, to prove your point, I just wanted to ask, are either one of us, any of us here, are we ever upset if, assuming we actually, didn't screw our own rotation up, we actually, did it right? Are we ever upset if an Ellie beats us? I'm never upset. I'm always amazed. If a Weaver beats me, or even the Catalyst beats me, I'm always like, wow.
You're kind of rooting for him secretly, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm like, you deserved that.
Yeah, for real. No, it's true, because they spent a lot of time in the SFTA, man. If they're coming out there beating you or I in DPS, they put the freaking work in, and it's a tough build to play. It's not just a tough build to learn in the SFTA. It's an even tougher build to put into implementation in an actual raid environment. And so you got to respect it. You got to take your hat off to it. Flying Triangle says, okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, this one is a little off topic, so go ahead.
Okay. So last thing before we switch topics, Isa made a point, and this was also kind of in talking about Teapot's video, but Isa made a point about Condi taking over the meta. Everything is Condi right now. Literally everything's Condi. You go to CA, that's like the only thing where it's not Condi. I mean, there's a few other.
I bet you could bring Condi to it if you really wanted to.
I mean, wouldn't we say though that that's kind of a trend?
10 scourges.
Oh, you stop that right now.
Wouldn't we say that that's kind of a trend though, where ArenaNet will give Condi its day and everything's Condi, and then a bunch of patches later it will be that power is overtaking? Like, has there been a time when there's been a pretty decent balance between the two? Because it just seems like it's always one or the other.
I would say yes. I can remember power metas that existed, but they were a long time ago. There was a time where DH stacking or power chrono stacking everywhere was the name of the game. So you remember that. There was also times where staff Ellie, power staff Ellie, was also defining the meta. There was a time where power dagger Deadeye was defining the meta. These times did exist, but there were always like, it's almost better and healthier when the power meta is the stronger thing, because Condis are gonna they have an easier time forcing their way in for certain fights. Yeah, the fights that they're viable for are really favoring them, so they actually get a better advantage to push their way into coexisting with power. But when it's a much higher Condi meta, not because of fights and the inclusion of long phases or whatever, but actually just that pure DPS of the modern Condi builds. When that's the case, Power has a really hard time fighting its way in. I've been trying to do Power Hollow again recently, and
no,
I'm doing okay, but I got to work my butt off, man. And if I'm in a group with a really strong Condi mech, or a decently strong Condi mech, or a decently strong Virtuoso, or a decently strong Spectre, I'm sweating.
The Fury issue with Hollow right now.
The what?
Like my Fury uptime.
Oh, the Fury uptime, because nobody needs Fury.
Yeah, Fury uptime is so bad on Hollow now. It's painful, man.
It is, and a lot of classes aren't caring about that.
Yeah,
except Virtuoso, because remember, Virtuoso is weird. It's kind of it is a huge part of the meta right now, and it is needy as hell. It is seriously needy. Isaac says, Merrick, we get to DPS race soon. You shall be called upon by the gamers for a special project. That sounds ominous and freaking awesome. I'm excited for this to happen. Did you finish Cryptic before we move her?
Oh, yeah, we can move on. No, I was just gonna say, do you remember? You've been raiding a little bit longer than me. Do you remember a time when Condi was the meta, like anywhere close to this? Like there were times when Condi was the meta, I should say, but I mean like times when Condi was the de facto. Like we've had times when Power was like DH stacking. You brought back PTSD from that. I hated that so much.
I mean, all I have to say to completely answer that question is Condi Scourge. That's all you have to say.
You're right,
and that totally dominates that, because there have been times where Condi Scourge literally defined the raiding experience, and that is really dangerous. I'm constantly afraid of Scourge. I'm terrified of Scourge. I hate the class. I really do. I know there's a lot of people. It's a hot take. People are gonna freak out, but I hate it because it's too volatile. It is too easy to be too strong. And if they screw it up, and it's not even their fault, man. It's really hard to balance this class. And if they screw up the balance, oops, now everything is defined by Scourge. It's like if it's too good, if it crosses this tiny little threshold of 1 point of overpoweredness, it all of a sudden is like every group is like, we don't care what you play, but you also have to have a Scourge. And on this fight, and this fight, we 5-6 Scourge stack. And it changes every strategy and every expectation of every meta group. And it's not even just because of Epidemic. There's also like the trivializing of raids we've already talked about with the inclusion of Barrier. That class scares the crap out of me. But in addition to Scourge being terrifying, there have been times where Condi Firebrand and especially Condi Renegade have really sort of rocked the world out there, where it's almost too strong everywhere.
The fight back I'm going to put on that, though, is we're at a point now with Condi where pretty much every class, do you remember that Reddit post where like every class has a Condi build that does a certain amount of damage? There's like one that doesn't, that's like slightly under. But every class.
Now I want to know what it is.
Now. I'm going to have to find that post again. I wish I should have. If I know we were going to talk about all this, I would have had it ready. But
what happened to our actual topic?
Yeah.
Poor Judy. She's like keeps disappearing. We don't even notice because she can't speak to this one as much.
But there is like seven or eight power classes that are or specializations that are viable. It's like way less than Condi. Condi is like, I feel like Condi has the most options and is now the most dominant. And I feel like that has created this like extra level that we haven't seen before. You know what I mean? Like just pushed it over. Like, go like DH stacking, right? We'll go back to that one because that's the one that I hate the most. Like it wasn't like there was a ton of other options that you were just like, oh man, like, you know, like look at all these, Power just has all these options that we can go to, you know, that like, even though DH is the meta and that's what everybody's doing, like there's only like 3 Condi classes, like everything else is Power, but that just wasn't the case. They
probably fleshed out Condi a lot more. Emma says, I love DH stacking. I was not a fan of DH stacking. And it wasn't even a problem. Oh, dude, Danny, thank you for the sub. I really appreciate that. So DH stack. So we should explain, right? The reason why that a lot of classes are stacked when it comes to certain meta levels of fights is not because of just its DPS or even just its burst. It's also trying to squeeze in boon providing in a cheating way. So like the reason why people stack DHs was it was a very high burst DPS class that you could be guaranteed a certain amount of DPS. Now, like ask me if I could come in on my Power Reaper or my Power Hollow and decimate a full stack of DHs, and the answer is yes. I did that throughout the entirety of the existence of DH stacking, I was consistently able to out DPS 90% of DHs that I saw, but it wasn't about that. It was about, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no doubt.
Like a 10-man DH stack or not an 8-man
10-man DH stack?
Like
the
CA DH stacking, where they just brought all DHs and just insta-gibbed it.
Yeah, I would put my sword PBM against a DH any day, for sure, even in burst. Yeah, 100%. You underestimate the power burst of Hollowsmith. No, it's huge. My build spikes so much harder than yours. You play ECSU, you have a different skewed take on that, or even rifle. But the reason is that they cannot take a quickness provider at all, right? And just bring one skill, Feel My Wrath, right? That is providing quickness. And if there's enough of them, you don't actually have to take a dedicated quickness source. And then Power Chrono became the thing, was just as good in terms of huge power burst. It was a little bit more delayed on the burst, but it was just as, oh, you brought coffee? That's where you kept going? I love you so much. Judy just brought me coffee. But they did the same thing. They had time work.
Guys.
You know what? If you were here, we give you some coffee. Someday, Cryptic and Judy and I are going to do like an in-person coffee break.
Someday. We are all going to be in the same room, and it's going to be amazing while we film this.
Danny says, haven't been able to catch you all recently. Hope you're doing amazing. We're doing okay, man. And we've been streaming a lot earlier. This is actually later for us. We've been streaming I've been streaming rather in sort of like the middle of the day. So I've been catching a lot of EU times recently. So that's sort of where we've been. Flying Triangle said, have the new CM strikes been trivialized? Maybe all the old raid bosses need a CM. So I think that adding CMs to all the pre-Wing 4 raid bosses is probably the coolest, best, and most approachable way to add raid content to this game. I've said that for a long time. I think that would be awesome. We're not going to get any new raid wings. So it's just not going to happen. So when that's not the case, I would almost rather them add CMs to previous raid bosses and give us like strikes that I may or may not like. But the answer to your question, Triangle, is yes. They are for the most part trivialized, except for the CM. People are calling it Anka CM, and it's because Anka CM was just added, and there's an achievement that grants a title inside that CM that is not the CM, but it puts further restrictions on your performance in the CM, and that is extremely hard. Isa and others have said that it is indeed the biggest flex of a title in PvE that you can give right now, is that thing. In fact, the moment that we're done with Coffee Break, the MTV community has a group going in to attempt this. So unfortunately, I won't be streaming it, but it should be fun. It's apparently an enormous DPS.
Without me? Oh, man.
The signups are there. You never sign up. We ping all the time. It was an open ping.
Should have pinged me.
You have blocked the pings on the raid thing. I know you have. I'm onto you, dude.
Me either. I was not pinged.
You got pinged just like everybody.
Really? Are you sure? I don't know. I don't think I got pinged.
What is this? This mutiny? Isa says, wait, I want to come. I want you to come too, man. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so we've talked a lot about
Emerald, you're right.
video, and I think we covered that pretty well. We should probably transition to our original advertised topic.
Since we have 10 minutes.
Originally came here for it, yeah. I don't know if you guys wanted to hit leveling before we can always come back to this in another podcast, but before we
you know what I was gonna say, like we might as well finish this up because I would prefer not to go back to Friday next week and actually have it for Tuesday. So like as long as you're available, Cryptic, for Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, because we didn't do it. This is Friday. I know we told everyone we were going to change this to Tuesday, and normally we will in the future. We didn't this week because we weren't able to make that happen. But starting next week, I think we could probably do Tuesday. And at that point, it'll have been a shorter amount of time. Maybe we just hit that topic.
Yeah, I was going to say that Tuesday is actually an open day for us because we have to work around our evening yoga schedule.
We've been doing yoga as often as we've been doing raiding. That's how crazy this is. My wife has me doing yoga like 4 times a week.
Marek
which is insane.
Way better at it than I am. Just gonna put that out there.
Listen, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I was looking and I was like, everyone started. It was a very advanced class, and they were like, okay, now if it's in your practice and you've been good at it, you're ready for it, you go ahead and do like a headstand. And I was like, I haven't done a headstand since I was a teenager. And I looked around the room and like almost nobody did it, right? And then I was looking at this girl next to me and she just rocked it, like in the easiest thing ever. And it turns out she's a gymnast. But I was just looking at her, shaking my head with my jaw on the floor. I was like, oh, I can't do that crap. And the teacher walks up to me and goes, what do you want to try this? Which one do you want to try? I'm like, you haven't said a word to anyone individually this entire class, and you're putting me on the spot, and everyone's looking. I was like, I guess I don't know how to do this, and she has me do it. And much to my surprise, I did not fall on my face, and then I got back down, and everyone clapped. Everyone clapped for me.
Everyone clapped because
got
it's like
clapped.
a first time headstand.
She turned to the class and goes, his first time, and all of these like yogis.
Claps,
These yogis,
yes.
these yogi bears clapped for me. It was very exciting. What's up, Pinko? Pinko is in the group tonight, I think. The one that we're about to start.
Mm-hmm. The one without me and Junie, I see.
I know, right? We'll just do something else, Cryptic. It's all good.
Yeah,
you guys. I'm supposed to play Star Citizen with Cryptic sometime this weekend. So.
Yeah,
that's true.
Just if you downloaded it yet?
I've started looking at where I'm going to put it because it's huge. So anyway, I want everyone to know we are going to be, we try to keep these sort of bite-sized, like an hour and a half. That's about like the right time, I think, for a podcast. We will touch on sort of the new player experience, the leveling experience, the dichotomy between end game and leveling game next week. That'll be a good topic to do.
This kind of for baiting everyone.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, that's the one that I prepared for today, so I don't know.
I know, Judy, poor Judy. But this stuff is really important. I think Guild Wars 2 is in such a state of flux right now. It's at once more accessible at endgame than ever before, and maybe more divisive in terms of how people feel about it and what they're doing with it than ever before. So this kind of stuff is very interesting. There's a lot of cool builds out there. There's a lot of cool things. We're seeing records, right? Like we just did Raid League. MTV participated in Raid League this last week, by the way, and we will be doing it again soon. So if you guys want to watch that, we will be trying to stream our practices and that kind of stuff. So we're getting a sort of a static team together, which is kind of fun. But when giant shifts in meta change things like this, you know, Raid League and speed runs and even just the pug experience or the new Raider experience, everything is sort of turned on its head. So these are really big things to talk about when these changes happen. And I would say right now, like, listen, you guys have heard a lot of back and forth about whether or not we think it's a good idea for things to be the way that it is. But if you guys are here and you're thinking, I would like to get into raids, I've always been curious, or I'm too scared, or DPS is intimidating. I know people like flex it all the time and I don't know how to do it. Right now, more than ever before, is the best time to get your feet wet learning raids. It is less scary than it's ever been. There's more versatility in viability than ever before. If you like a specific class or a specific elite spec, guess what? You can bring it to raids right now. Like, I don't care what it is. You don't even have to tell me what it is. Don't say Untamed. And you can just bring anything. Just don't say Untamed. But everything else you can bring to raids. And it is
good Untamed blogs.
And I mean 6MB I think can do like okay on it. But listen,
people are cheating, but that's a side topic.
Yeah, that's a little sketchy. But the truth is that there have been gates, like physical, social, gates that have always been for raids, and those are much easier to breach right now than ever before. If you guys want to learn, like, listen, we do raid trainings, and sometimes we do build trainings. So if you guys are interested, reach out to me. Whatever Cryptic and I might think about Virtuoso or Mechanist or whatever right now, you should be playing them. That is the absolute answer to this. Don't listen to, grumpy old veteran gamers like us being like, man, we wish it was whatever. It is what it is right now, and it is so good. I could teach you guys to play Condi Mechanist to a great degree right now. It doesn't even have to be this like stupid whatever 4-button thing. Like, there's ways to really play this build that are really teachable with a lot of cool utility, and it's really accessible. So if you guys really want to learn this stuff, it's time. Raids are so fun, and you can do it right now.
I have to put out there, Virtuoso, not a bad one, right? Wouldn't you say that's pretty accessible?
Arguably better.
Right?
Yeah.
Pretty accessible. Also,
yes.
It has a lot of the elements of the Power Chrono build from that. I remember we put that guide together a while ago.
A lot of elements about the streamlined Power Chrono. Yes.
Yeah, the streamlined Power Chrono build. Like, it has a lot of those elements. It was something that when I took a look at it, I was surprised how quickly I caught on with it. And I think it's because I had watched that streamlined Power Chrono build, the guide that you had done like a year or two ago.
There's also no like confusing elements there, right? There's no like there's a lot of weird stuff that goes into even power virtuoso. You might not think it, but it's true. There's weird nuance that goes into power chrono that everybody knows. There's nuance that goes into mirage. There's always in any mesmer there's like weird nuance. In Kandi virtuoso, the nuance comes into gearing before the fight. You have to make sure you have enough crit, but then the logic is easy. You know, use this whenever you can. Whenever you are full blades, use this. Like, you don't even have to worry about using your dagger skills. Like, there's no auto attack chains to count at all. Dagger is 100% just a ranged weapon, so you just keep chucking daggers. And it's also ranged. You don't have to worry about being close. It pierces, it slices, it dices, it chops, and it is basically the slap chop of freaking DPS gaming in Guild Wars 2 right now. And you can't go wrong with that. It's the sham wow. Is what I'm trying to say. It does everything, and it does it so easily. I hope you guys even know what I'm talking about there. The slap chop and the sham wow.
Sham wow, man.
Sham wow.
We used to talk about sham wow all the time. Yeah, but we should probably be wrapping up. I think you guys have a hard stop. I didn't realize that originally. But yeah, to our next week topic, we will be what we advertised originally, leveling and questing.
On Tuesday.
On Tuesday. So we'll have a quick turnaround, and we'll be back to talk about the actual topic that we baited all of you into joining for. And
sorry about that, guys.
I blame Roz for this. I don't know how, but sometimes.
Yeah. Why not? Everything's Roz's fault. Oh, what's up, Focus? Good to see you, bro. Shout out to my friend Focus here. Good new Guild Wars 2 streamer. He says, teach me all things raid. Dude, I see you PvPing every night, man. You got to come in and do some raids with me, bro. I will teach you while you're streaming. I will teach you DPS. I will teach you raid mechanics. Honestly, guys, if you take anything away from Cryptic and I and Junie and I about raiding, is that it is super fun, super interesting. There's always new things to learn and to practice. This is what we're talking about with the skill ceiling of Guild Wars 2. And right now, it's an open door. Right? You can be very mediocre or very new, and you're less likely to get kicked out of a raid comp, even a pug, for playing the wrong build or doing bad DPS than ever before, because the numbers are so high that the DPS is fine, and there's so many builds out there that are good now. It used to be locked down, man. There used to be like 1, maybe 2 builds you could play for support or for DPS, and Mirror Comp was strangling the raid scene. You guys got to get into raiding right now. Check online. Check your friendly neighborhood streamers. Join our Discord, !Discord in the chat. We do raid trainings. Always people there to help. It's really a great time. The only people that are grumpy about the raid scene are like us old, grumpy, jaded veterans. But for you new guys, it's the perfect time. So enjoy.
Yeah, it's never been better for new people. So you should definitely take advantage of it. Go get your Doom kills.
Yep. Go get your Doom kills now. Doom CM right now. Let's go. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into our coffee break again. Off topic, but very interesting stuff going on in the world of Guild Wars 2. We will be picking this up again next Tuesday, probably around the same time, 7-ish. That's a good time. Yep. We will discuss the new game experience, the leveling process, all that kind of good stuff. Join our Discord. That's where we can announce when we're streaming, what we're streaming, who we're streaming with, all that good stuff. That's in the Discord, discord.gg/Merrick TV. Also, Merrick TV on Twitter. I do updates when we do our podcast. You can always check to see when we're live there. Also, Merrick Gaming on YouTube. We're going to be uploading the podcast. Any podcast we ever do gets uploaded to YouTube, so you can watch it later. Also, you guys that watch our VODs on YouTube exclusively, thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Shout out to you. Follow, subscribe. Let us know down below if you agree with us. Maybe everything we've said has just triggered the hell out of you, and we welcome the discussion. If you guys PM us in our Discord about Coffee Break, or you write comments in the YouTube videos, we oftentimes bring that stuff up on Coffee Break, so you guys could get involved in that way. As always, thank you so much to my co-host, Cryptic Villain, who's going to be streaming soon. I have on good authority, so please follow him right now because he's going to be streaming very soon. And Junivision, my beautiful wife who I met in Guild Wars 2, also streams occasionally. Try to get her to do it more.
Okay, so yes, I have a thing. I will be streaming some stuff soon. As some of you may know, I haven't had time to really delve into this, but Ron Gilbert, there's going to be a new Monkey Island, so I'm going to be continuing.
Hey, you guys hear about that? It's huge. Yeah.
So I'm going to be continuing some of my Monkey Island streams. So we'll probably be doing those. I'll be recording them on Twitch, and then I'll put them on YouTube. So yeah.
Nice. Yep. And tune in for my usual content, which is Guild Wars 2 raids. We do a lot of that stuff. Also, last shout out before I end this. I'm going to be making, some of you guys who watch my stream know I do a lot of Star Trek stuff. I'm really into Trek. We play a lot of STO. I have a plan that I'm going to actually be building like a Star Trek related YouTube channel and also podcast. There's a lot of new Trek going on right now. I'm really into the new stuff. There's a ton of things that I like to do. I'd like to do like a watch through with everyone on episodes and do commentary afterwards, get some people that are into it and do a podcast, a lot of cool stuff. If you're into that at all, let me know because it may not be on this channel, but I will be doing that very soon and I'm pretty excited about it. So hopefully we'll catch you guys for that.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Do you know how many Star Treks are there? There were in the past Deep Space Nine lapped with Voyager and also with Next Gen. So there were like
TNG
2
overlap,
running
yeah.
at a time in the past. But now there's 1, 2, 3,
5.
4?
5.
5. Technically 5.
5
at
concurrent
the same
Star Trek
time.
shows right now.
That's insane.
It is insane. All right, guys. Love you. You're all beautiful, amazing human beings. Let's go and drop some viewers in on. Let's do what? It's Ari's birthday. We're gonna go say what's up to Ari Lozen. It's his birthday stream right now, so please go say what's up to him. Show some
yes,
love.
Focus. Is that how you pronounce your name? Focus?
One Focus. Yeah, I'm trying to get him to actually be on my podcast, man. I mean, he doesn't have to be a co-host, but I would love to have him on there if he wants to, because he knows a lot. Awesome dude.
Yeah.
Eliandre, what's up, man? We're ending the stream right now, so I'm so sorry, but I love you, buddy. Have a great one. We'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.